What's going on, guys? MotherDesigner here, doing part 2 of the Unreal Engine 4 tutorial basics. Last time I covered movement, rotation, scale, viewports, and today I'm going to show you how to build a simple scene using static meshes, materials, and lighting. So to first start off, we go File, New. We'll just delete this player start. We'll delete this dominant directional light. Yes, we'll delete the fog and go to our unlit mode. So this is what you should look like right now. And to get started, we'll find some static meshes. So we'll go to Window, Content Browser. And the content browser where you can find all your materials, static meshes, particles, animations, blueprints, anything you need for your scene. So to really narrow down what you need, you can go to Filters and select Static Mesh. And right now I'm using the starter content of Unreal Engine 4, nothing fancy. So in here there's some meshes we can use to start building a scene together. So to get started, I'll pick this wall 500 by 500. And just place it into the world, and using the same hotkeys I discussed last time, movement, rotation, scale, putting it into place where I need it to be. Then I can select this doorway. Just line it up. And to add a static mesh, I kind of skipped a step, is to select it from the content browser and just drag and drop it into the world. Like that. So just building a simple building here. Again, using the Alt drag to clone meshes. Very fast way to build levels. And we'll add some windows. Make sure it's lined up. And that's probably good enough. We'll probably add one more window up here, just to get a basic scene set up. Again, it's not perfect, not the best scene in the world, but it's something to get started with. Next, we can add some other props. We'll just add like this table, this chair, and this bench. And what the hell, we'll just add in this light. Now to actually start lighting a scene, you can go to Window, Modes, and go to Lights. There's 4 types of lights. There's a directional light, which is your main lighting for the scene, point lights, which you can use at specific locations, spotlights, and your skylight, which again dominates the entire scene. So to get started, we'll go to our unlit mode, and we'll go click on directional light because this is what we need first. This denotes the direction of the core sunlight of your scene. After you put it in the world, you want to click on the sky dome, and where it says in the details panel directional light actor, click on none, then click on your directional light. What this does, it attaches your light to the sky. So as you rotate your light your light source from the sky will change as well. And additionally, we have a checkbox on that says colors determined by sun position. As I rotate my sun per se, the colors will automatically adjust by the math in the engine to find the right lighting scheme. So for example, if I rotate this to give some nice long shadows, and I'll click on my sky and rotate that as well, you can see it has turned to a sunset with the light source coming from the angle that it is facing. You can tell which angle it's facing by which way the arrow is pointing. And the editor has automatically done a sunset scene for me. If I were to point it straight down, click on my sky, and just click on that, it's gone to a more high noon setting with the sun actors very up high, and my shadows are straight down. So you can adjust this to what you'd like to see in your scene. The next thing I'll cover is point lights. So to take point light, just click and drag it into the world. When you have a point light selected, you can see these blue circles. This is the radius of how far the light is actually affecting. Right now it's a very large radius. So what we can do is go to where it says radius, attenuation radius, and drop this to, let's say, 500, or even lower, 250. And you can, let's say, drag it and put it underneath our lights static mesh. I can change the color of this light simply by clicking on light color. And as you can see, it is now bright red. I could also make it green, or blue, or whatever color you like. Again, this is just basic lighting. Advanced lighting is a much more detailed topic, which I'll try to cover down the road, where you actually can do proper light colors, light blending, and it takes some understanding of color theory to get some very good accurate lighting that you see in scenes and games that are out there. Taking a step back, you can also change the color of your directional light the same way. You can also change its intensity, right, of how bright you actually want your scene to be. Another cool thing you can do with the directional light is light shafts. So with the directional light selected, click on Light Shafts panel in the detail page and turn on Light Shaft Occlusion and Light Shaft Bloom. What this does, it will create very cool light shafts in your scene that you can use to create cool effects. Like so. But again, the light shafts are only seen if you have the checkbox on. You can also change the color of the light shafts as well to match your scene as needed. Another part of lighting is adding a skylight. This helps to control your shadows and your overall scene composition. Right now the skylight is very bright as I dropped it into the world, but here you can change its intensity. Usually want a value between 0 and 1. Going over usually blows out the scene unless that's what you're kind of looking for. So let's go for a value of like 0.3. And we can change the light color as well. So now we can really highlight the blues in this scene if we wanted to with our skylight. Or we can say we want more of a green tint for our scene, or a orange tint. Lastly, you can add spotlights as needed. Again, they work just like point lights, but they have more of a spotlight effect, as you would expect. You have a cone and a radius to how far the spotlight actually projects. Again, you can change these settings, the intensity, you can change the color, and you can change the cone angle of how far the spotlight actually affects. Now the last piece of the puzzle is fog. To do fog, you'd go to Visual Effects, and I typically like to use the exponential height fog. Here you can change the fog density. We'll just really crank it up to 2. You can change the fog color. You can change the fog fall off. You can change the opacity. You can change its start distance. You can change the directional inscattering color, which is the kind of like an opposite color. You can change its intensity. You can change its start distance as well. So you know me to say like, okay, that's the basics, but how do I put it all together? So let's try to do that. Go to File, New, don't save. So we'll try to put something practical into works here. So what we'll do is we will start with a wall. And just try to build a simple box room, cloning this wall piece. Go to unlit mode so I can see what I'm doing. And we'll take this, we'll take the cube and just fill in this gap. Scale it up a little bit. So it just kind of covers that hole. And we'll scale it across. Again, I'm using the spacebar hotkey to change between scale, rotation, and movement. And we'll add in some pillars in here as well. And delete that player start, don't need that at the moment. And then we'll add a bench this side and a bench on the other side. Then we'll go to our lit mode we'll delete the default directional light. We'll delete the default fog, and we'll go back to unlit. And let's say we'll add a lamppost as a light source. Cool. Then we'll start with our, go to Window, Modes, Lights, Directional Light. Go to click on the sky, attach our directional light to the sky, and we'll go to lit mode and start to see what our things look like. And maybe I'll just adjust this a little bit. Then I'll add in my skylight. Keep it about a 0.4 setting. Give it some blue contrast. And then I will add in some spotlights to highlight my lamps that I have. And we'll crank up the intensity to, let's say, 8,000 and make it more of a yellow tint. And just to fill the scene, I will add in a point light and lower the intensity to 3,000 and change the radius to around 500. Now, one thing you may notice is, why did that spotlight have an X on it? The thing is, there's too many overlapping casting shadowing actors. Again, this is a more complex concept, but for now, what we can do is click on our point lights, select from both, and then you can do turn off cast shadows, so that only our spotlights are casting shadows and not the point lights. And I'll change the point light colors to match our light source, kind of that yellow hue. And then I will lastly add some fog. Give it a little density, let's see, 0.25. Maybe a little bit of a blue feel. And that is a simple scene putting together lights. But now you may be wondering, like, it still feels kind of bland because the pillars and the floor, they don't have a texture or a material. To do that, we will go again to our content browser, and instead of the filters of static mesh, we'll go filters, material. And see, right now I'm seeing both materials and static meshes. To keep things simple, I will turn off the static mesh flag. And now, to add a material to the world, I can just click on it, drag and drop, and there we go. I turned that ugly floor into a cool concrete texture. I can select this brick and put it on the pillar. And then I can put, let's say, this concrete for my ceiling. Give it a second to load into the editor. Select all my ceilings here so we can apply it to all of them. Another fun way to apply materials is if you have it selected in the content browser, in the details panel where you can go select on a static mesh and the materials, You can change the material by clicking this arrow. Use selected asset from content browser. And just applying different materials. And then I'll select my walls. And then if you hit G, you can kind of hide and unhide the actors. So if you hit G, your scene should look like this, which is called game mode. So this is kind of what you'd see in game. So putting together static meshes and some basic lighting created a simple scene. One thing you note, you'll see the word preview everywhere on your scene. This is because you've not built lighting. To build lighting, you just go to the build menu. Don't click this button, otherwise it'll start building immediately and your computer will start putting all resources to build the scene. Click on the little arrow to the right of build. And in there, there's build only lighting and build lighting quality. Depending on what kind of computer you have, this may take anything for up to a couple minutes or a couple of hours, depending again how big the scene is as well. Production lighting is what you usually do when you're trying to ship a final product or a final scene. Preview builds are for moment to moment to see how things look in the editor. So this is a simple scene. It should take only a few minutes to render. So I'll click on preview and I'll click on build and build lighting only. And give it a few seconds. As you can see, my computer's quite fast and my lighting build took only a few seconds to do. 100% done lighting. But this is a major scene. This one might take even hours or overnight for a production build. And there you go. So using some basic lighting and static mesh placement, we have created a small scene here. Not the best scene in the world, but hopefully, again, some basic to help you get started to build cool scenes and environments in Unreal Engine. I hope you liked it, and please feel free to comment and subscribe, and I look forward to sharing my next tutorial, which will cover some more in-depth topics about lighting. Till then, I'll see you next time. Cheers.